guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Brendan. I'm a UX design student at Flatiron School, and I'm going to be going over the 8 areas that I went through to evaluate UX bootcamps. I talked about this in my second video, but I wanted to give you some framework and things to keep top of mind, questions that you should ask during the research and admissions process and throughout the program. So without further ado, let's look at those 8 different sections. And what I did is I created 2 different slides. The first slide is going to talk about what's important or why it's important. And the second slide is going to talk about how you find that information. So in this first slide, here are the 8 sections: instructor quality, curriculum, program length, mentorship, design critique, portfolio building, collaboration with classmates, and job placement. So with instructor quality, here are the things that you really want to consider. You want to consider the experience of the instructors, and each school will have its own criteria for how long an instructor has been in the space as well as instructing. Some may not want first-time instructors, and others may be okay with it, and you kind of have to decide if that's okay with you. I don't feel like it personally is an issue for me, and so that wasn't something that I necessarily asked, but I did want to know how many years they've been in the space and you know, what the lead instructors to junior instructors, or however you want to say that, how many are there lead instructors comparatively, and will you get access to these lead instructors? The other things to consider are teaching styles as well as your learning style. So how are they going about sharing the information, and how are you best learning this information? So are there live instructions? Are these pre-recorded? You know, how are you going to be able to dissect this information? And then the average tenure of instructors might give you some indication on whether this program has been around for a long time or whether it's been successful and these kind of things. So you might want to be asking these questions early on before you get into the program if this is something that you really, you know, you want to make a focus within your research. So how can you find instructor quality? Well, first is LinkedIn. You can search for instructors under school employees, and I'll show you how to do that here in a minute. And then you can also look at the throughout the application process. You can research on the website and ask during the interview process, you know, what is the criteria for selecting an instructor? How long have they been teaching on average? What is their experience within the field? Do they have degrees in this space? Obviously, this space is relatively new, but these are all things that you might want to ask yourself. So let's take a look real quickly at LinkedIn. What I did here is added a couple of filters. So in this case, I looked at Flatiron School, and then I just added instructor. You might want to add UX UI, but I just wanted to give you an example. You can see here a UX instructor, UX UI. These are lead instructors, UX UI, and you're going to be able to look at things like how long they've been in the space and how long they've been working for that school. So something to really keep in mind. So with that said, let's jump back into the slide deck here. Now let's take a look at the next section here. So the second section is curriculum. Things you should be considering is how many students have graduated / completed the program. You know, has this program been around for a while? And this is something that you want to be thinking about throughout the entire process. You want to see how long this curriculum has been in place. And also, is there a difference between full-time and part-time curriculum? In certain instances, this is definitely the case. Obviously, the time difference is there, but they also will change the curriculum based on the fact that there isn't as much time. And then how much depth and width will you have when you go about learning? So the important thing that I wanted when I was going to look through a curriculum, I wanted to make sure that not only did I have depth of knowledge within a specific space, but then I had width, so I knew a little bit about everything and I could talk on those things and at least have those things in mind to learn about going forward on my own time, because you're not going to be able to learn everything in the program. You just want to have some sort of understanding of what each concept is within the field. Now let's talk about how you can discover this information. So the first thing you can do is download curriculum from the website. This is fairly easy to do. Sometimes they'll send it to your email, but it should be pretty straightforward. The other thing you can do is look at reviews on sites like Course Report and SwitchUp, and occasionally you can see reviews regarding the curriculum specifically. So I'm going to dive into how that would look. Over here I have SwitchUp opened. So if you go to any one of the programs, this is Thinkful, you can see their reviews, and so they'll have specific stars for curriculum. That might help, but then reading about these reviews and seeing why they gave it a 4 would be helpful. Obviously they don't have anything else to compare it to, but it is important to see what other people are saying about curriculum. You can also do this in Course Report. All you have to do is click into Thinkful or Block, whichever one you choose, and then look at reviews specific to curriculum. So the next important section or thing to consider is the program length. You want to be thinking about whether you're going to be going full-time versus part-time, and how much time you have spent prior to going to the boot camp. If you spent some time early on, it might be easier for you to complete a full-time program that's only, say, 10 weeks like General Assembly, because you have some sort of grasp and you're comfortable with getting into the field maybe 2 weeks after you graduate, let's say. Otherwise, you might consider a part-time program where you're learning at your own pace, or you do your own learning prior to going in. There are job placement opportunities depending on the program. They might guarantee you a job, but that is also something that you have to be comfortable with, knowing that after the program you're going to be trying to get a job, and you want to make sure that you're ready for that. And how will you support yourself throughout the program is super important. That might dictate whether you go full-time or part-time. So just think about these things, and I'm sure this is an obvious one, but something you should really evaluate carefully. Let's talk about how you can discover this. All information about the program length should be listed on the website. Otherwise, you can reach out to alumni on LinkedIn and ask how they felt prepared after the program to break into the field. You might want to find someone that's comparable to your position and what you are going through. Let's talk about the next one, which is mentorship. So things to consider. How important is mentorship to you? And the reason that I say this is because not every program is going to offer mentorship as an option, but this might be something that could really help take you to the next level. The other thing you want to really consider is how experienced are these mentors? Are these people that have years of experience, or are they perhaps 2-4 years of experience? You just want to be thinking about these things early and often. So with that said, how often and how much time will you spend with the mentor? At Flatiron, I usually spend I have a call each week with my instructor, which is kind of going to lead into the next question, whether they're your mentor and instructor. Are they one and the same? In Flatiron, they're one and the same. You don't have a mentor and an instructor, but I spend usually 15 to 30 minutes a week on a private call with my instructor, who I consider my mentor as well. So that is something to consider, whether mentorship is important. And how can you discover mentors? Well, research on LinkedIn and their website to see if they talk specifically about mentorship. They might not say that they're a mentor in LinkedIn if they're an instructor and it's one and the same, but it is good to know, it's good to see how long they've been in the field. You should ask alumni, which is the next thing here, how their experience was with a mentor and if they're still in touch after the program, because that should be something that you want after, just to, hopefully when you're in the field, you still have somebody to lean on. So let's talk about the next thing. Design critique. The reason this is so important is because you want to make sure as a student, you're learning and growing and making adjustments early, and you're improving your skills as quickly as possible, because realistically speaking, you're doing the amount of work that you might do in a 2 or 4 year program if you're in college. So you want to see, are you getting instructor critique or just student critique? And the reason that this is important is because your students may have equal value to your instructor when they give you critique, because they're going through the program. And so there are some assignments at Flatiron, for example, that we do get critiqued on by students, and you are assigned a person to critique as well, and it's important that you do that work. But that's just something you want to think about. How many people are going to be helping you get better, as well as how do they approach critique. Each school might have their own way of critiquing, and so this is something that you might think about asking early on in the admissions process. And how often will you get critiqued? So certain assignments you may or may not get critique on, and you just want to think about these things and ask these things early. That way you know. So how might you find out design critique? The easiest way is the application process. Just ask the admissions team and maybe talk to an instructor if you have the opportunity. The other thing is ask alumni if they felt like critique was an essential part of the program. So that's design critique. The next thing is portfolio building. So is there a dedicated part of the program to portfolio building? You want to get a good amount of pieces put in your portfolio, which is the next thing. How many portfolio pieces will I build? You want to make sure that you're not just left with one or two pieces at the end of the program. And with that said, how unique are these pieces? This is something that you want to be thinking about when you get a job. If you are building the same piece that everybody else is building, they're evaluating it strictly on maybe how that piece does compared to somebody else's. A common example is Spotify redesign at General Assembly is a very popular rebuild. And I know that at the place that I work at, we've had people apply for product design we had like 3 people do that Spotify General Assembly redesign. And it just is hard to distinguish maybe that applicant from somebody else if you're doing the exact same thing. So with that said, how can you discover portfolio building? Ask through the admissions process. This is something that's fairly obvious, but make sure to do so. You might let this thing slip, but this is super important. And looking at alumni portfolios, so you can go on LinkedIn and find people that used to quote unquote work at this school. If you just look at past, or you might see current students and they might have alumni portfolio websites linked from their LinkedIn page. So just go and look at portfolio websites, see what pieces they've made, and maybe they'll distinguish which ones they did in school. So just something to think about. Let's jump into the next one, which is collaboration with classmates. So things to consider are when and how often will you get to collaborate with your classmates. This may not be as important to you as some of the others, but I think that it is something that is real life work experience, because in the real world you're going to be working with others. And so with that said, are projects going to be personal or group projects, or are you going to have a mixture? I personally think it's good to have a balance of both. Some you're going to just have personal projects, and I think this is a disadvantage because if you don't have the ability to work with others within the design space, it is going to be something you're going to have to learn on the job, which isn't a problem, but I'm sure if you are going to be hiring somebody who has experience versus somebody who doesn't, it looks better to have that experience. So just be thinking about that going in, and then having access to say Slack or something similar allows for you to have calls and message somebody at any time. So we have it at Flatiron. It's super helpful for us. I can actually do a video call straight from within Slack. That's super helpful. And as far as how to discover it, admissions process, make sure you ask these things and then ask alumni to see if this is essential for the program. Some programs I know for a fact, they just don't seem to put this as a priority. This may not be important to you, but like I said, in the real world, as you can see in this background image, you're going to be working with others. The next one is job placement, and this is the last one. So is there a job guarantee at the end of the program, and how important is this to you? Is there a third party that can confirm the job placement statistics if they do guarantee a job? So this is important because they may be able to claim whatever they want, but if they don't have anyone to hold them to those statistics, how accurate or how true are they? And then how involved is career services in helping you get a job if there is career services in the first place? So think about these things. And then how do you find job placement? Well, you can see usually they'll have their job placement statistics straight on their website. If not, you can always email them and then do alumni research. Go on LinkedIn and see if they have landed a job based on the fact that it's going to be on their profile. So I hope that this helps. There is a lot to think about when applying for a UX Bootcamp, but let me know if you have any questions or comments. Make sure to like and subscribe. And in the next video, just so you know, we will be going over my final update on the first phase of the program. So I'll see you guys next week, and looking forward to it. Thanks again.